ahead and resume. We're going to kind of do things backwards here because we have some folks that have to catch a flight. So we're going to do the discussion item first. I know for the next level fund, they only had to turn in a report, but I felt since it was new, I wanted them to come and maybe talk a little bit about it. So with that, we'll go ahead with the next level.
My name is Adarsh Mantravati, and I'm a Senior Director of Policy and Research in Governor Holcomb's office. Also serve as staff for the investment board of the Next Level Fund, joined by Aaron Gillum of 50 South Capital. 50 South Capital, of course, is the administrator for the Next Level Fund. We are here to speak to the report that was submitted to the committee earlier this month. I'll provide just some brief background on the program and the board's activities, and then invite Aaron to touch on the report. So, as you know, the Next Level Fund was a $250 million investment fund that aims to support entrepreneurship and innovation. It was created legislatively in the 2017 session as part of Governor Holcomb's agenda. The high-level goals are, of course, to provide a strong investment performance for the state, to support continued growth and vibrancy of our entrepreneurial community, and to drive economic activity through investment. The statute created an investment board to act as a trustee and to provide guidance and oversight to the program. The board has since been established, and its membership includes President of the IEDC, Elaine Beadle, who serves as the chair, Micah Vincent, the OMB director, Treasurer Kelly Mitchell, and two governors' appointees, Bill Godfrey and Cindy Lucchese, the CFO of the Hellman Corporation, and Bill Godfrey is a very well-respected entrepreneur here in town. There are, of course, two advisory members, former Senator Luke Kenley and Representative Dr. Brown. So the investment board was tasked with developing an investment policy to, of course, fulfill the statutory responsibilities of maximizing risk-appropriate returns and making significant investments in Indiana funds and Indiana companies. That policy was adopted in the spring of 2018. And the board also has since oversaw a RFP process to select a program administrator, since the board wanted to have private parties help manage the fund itself. And so through a competitive process, 50 South Capital was selected as that program administrator, given their experience and knowledge of the space. Some of the responsibilities of the program administrator, of course, are implementing the policy, the investment selection and evaluation, reporting, of course, and then being that valuable contributor to the community itself, as obviously evidenced by their presence here today. So with that, I guess 50 South Capital started its role earlier this year, and I'll turn it over to Aaron to touch a little bit upon the report itself.
Thank you, Adarsh. My name is Aaron Gillum with 50 South Capital. I'm a senior vice president with the company. I'm joined here by my colleague, Bob Morgan, behind me, who's the managing director of 50 South Capital. Good morning, Budget Committee. Just to kind of continue along Ardesh's overview of the program, the purpose of the Next Level Fund is to invest in venture capital firms based in the state of Indiana or that have some type of nexus to the state, meaning they've got a track record of investing in companies in the state of Indiana or are seeking to relocate their firm to the state. The main objectives of the Next Level Fund are to foster a strong and vibrant ecosystem for investment companies and entrepreneurs looking to raise capital in the state, increase their national profile in the areas of healthcare, technology, agriculture, and other business sectors. The second objective is to drive overall economic activity in the state. by making investments in venture capital firms, like I said, that are based here or that have some type of nexus to the state. And then lastly, deliver a competitive investment return for the state and the treasurer on their budget dollars. So like Adarsh said, it's a $250 million program. I was brought on by 50 South Capital. I was hired in April of this year, so we've been at it about 8 months to date. But things are looking very well, and I'd like to give you just a few minutes of some of our progress to date. We've established, 50 South Capital has established an office here. We're actually just located a couple blocks away on Monument Circle. As I said, I was brought on in April to lead the charge for 50 South and the Next Level Fund. Since then, we've been very busy. One of the main core tenets for myself and for our firm is to be very transparent. It's to be make sure that people understand this is not just an Indianapolis or a Marion County program. So we've been out, scouring the four corners of the state, making sure everyone understands what the Next Level Fund does, what it can do for them, both the entrepreneurs and the investment firms out there. Some of the highlights, some of the things that we've done to date include we've met with probably 80 individual fund managers. These are firms that have shown an interest in investing in companies in Indiana. I would say to date about 25% or 1/4 of those firms have actually been based here in the state. We've also been busy, what I call just kind of community outreach, joining different entrepreneurial activities, sponsoring activities, speaking at engagements such as the Indiana Innovation Showcase held just a couple months ago at the Heritage Center. You can find us at events in Fort Wayne, such as Startup Fort Wayne, which took place just a couple months ago as well. We've attended and been guest speakers at tech events in Evansville, in Muncie, Fort Wayne, Terre Haute, Nashville, and South Bend, several areas of the state. Really, this goes back to one of our core tenets, was to make sure that we provide as much transparency and that we ensure that folks around the state know who we are, what the Next Level Fund does, and how we're working for them. Just as important, I would also put up there that we have become a major advocate of venture capital for the state of Indiana. So leveraging the experience of 50 South Capital, which invests globally as a firm, we have connections with well over 1,000 fund managers throughout the world. And what we do is we have become a great advocate for entrepreneurism and companies seeking to raise capital in the state. And that's important because you not only want to fund and back the fund managers based in Indiana, but you also need to attract capital from the coast, Silicon Valley, the East Coast, as well as international, and let them know not only that we've got great entrepreneurs and great companies here, but that they can also generate a great return, and hopefully this will create an exponential value going forward for these investment firms and these entrepreneurs. So with that all said, the fund has invested in our fund has invested in three fund managers to date. These can actually be seen publicly on our website. Those three funds are Techstars, High Alpha, and the Foundry Group. Two of those three funds are actually considered Indiana-based firms. Of the $250 million program, we've committed just over $25 million of it to date. We're always in fund diligence with other managers, so we're hoping that this number will continue to increase over time. Our goal is to do about 7 to 9 or so, invest in 7 or 9 fund managers every year over the next 5 years. So the way the program works is we are a fund of funds, so we will invest in these firms. These firms will then go and invest their money into companies, not only just based in the state of Indiana, but nationally. But the goal is to have overall $250 million of our dollars invested back into Indiana-based companies. With that said, I'm going to pause and see if I can take any questions.
questions from the committee? Representative Porter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You rattled off, three fund managers to this date, $25 million of the $250 million that you have had. The question would be, you say you'll look at managers for the next 5 years, from 7 to 9. Of these three, you said 2 are Indiana-based. Are there any minority companies, money managers that are in your portfolio, or are you looking at any of them? Minority,
there was
as
two
in
questions.
African-American,
Yep.
not, I'm African-American, not just women, African-Americans.
So to answer there was 2 questions there. To date, none of the firms that we've invested in.
So do you have a
are-
timeline or strategic plan to embrace that concept, yes or no?
I would say that yes, this is
So how
definitely a
long
tenet.
do you have a strategic plan?
I'm sorry, I
When
keep
is it
getting
and
cut
how
off.
long it may happen?
So the investment.
I can't hear you.
Okay. The investment board values.
I still can't hear you.
The investment board values diversity, but there is not a set aside for minority managers itself. The program itself, if you look at in the report itself, it talks about the venture capital position of the state of Indiana. I think Indiana is behind many of its neighbors in VC investments, ranks, I think, 25th in the country in VC dollars to venture-backed companies. If you look back to 2016, the state ranked 27th in venture amount invested in companies despite having the 17th largest economy. So the investment board itself is trying to drive as much venture activity to the state overall, and we obviously want to support as many managers as we possibly can, but there was not a specific set aside at this point.
Question, but you made a comment about the money was not for set aside, but is that Indiana money? Is that made up of all the residents of 6.2, 6.8 million people of different backgrounds?
The source of capital is actually the former Next Generation Trust Fund that was transitioned to support the new Next Level Fund. So
Right.
upon the 2006 or 7 lease of the.
But is
old
it not?
trust-
But is it not state tax dollars? Essentially,
No, it's not. It was revenue from the lease of the 2006 or 7.
From the toll road, right?
Yes.
Jason, you want to help him out or not?
Yeah, the answer, it's the proceeds from the total lease, the original lease, it was set aside.
Okay, but there's no, through this investment group that the governor has put together, which I didn't know anyone on that group except for Doc Brown and former Senator Luke Kinley, that there were anybody else other than with no diversity or inclusion in that whole movement, in that whole investment committee.
The investment board was statutorily defined. 3 of the positions were statutorily defined as the president of the Economic Development Corporation, the OMB director, and the treasurer of the state. There were 2 appointees that the governor had, and again, the legislation recommended that there be individuals that had significant financial experience and investment experience. The governor appointed Bill Godfrey, who is managing director of 4G Ventures and former founder of a Primo and a well-established entrepreneur in town, and Cindy Lucchese, who is the CFO of the Holman Corporation, who has also served in a number of various investment capacities over the years.
Okay, I thank you very much for answering that, because here we go again with continue to close a window opportunity for more diversity and inclusion. But let me finish before you say anything. Thank you. And from that perspective, I find it again disheartening from being around for a while that here we go again. We have individuals that a set group of individuals versus open it up to everyone, women, African Americans, or whoever. But you said statutorily done, and maybe someone needs to look at look at it legislatively and address it again. I don't know.
The program is open to everyone and is looking to invest across the spectrum.
But if you look under the hood of that program that's open to everyone, it really is open to a select everyone, from my perspective. But we can sit and have an off, we can talk about it off tape or whatever, but that's my opinion. That's my humble opinion. I think I'm right.
Representative Porter, I appreciate your question. I can maybe provide a little bit of context just for 50 South purposes. I won't provide any more for the states, but with 50 South Capital, we also do manage the state of Illinois, a very similar program. And to date, well over 50% of our program has been allocated to diverse women fund managers. So even though it doesn't have to be statutorily written, we, 50 South, and through this program, look for what we consider to be the best fund managers out there, and we know that a diverse portfolio generally generates a better return for the investors.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of the prior meeting, October 16, 2018.
Second.
The minutes have already been signed. Yeah, this is the agenda, not the minutes. The minutes have already been signed. So can we take the agenda by consent? All right, thank you. All right. So first up, we're going to have Indiana State Museum. We have two projects, by the way, State Museum and Indiana University Bloomington. I'm sorry, we
Good morning. My name is Kathy Faree, and I'm the CEO and president of the Indiana State Museum and Historic Sites. And with me today is Krishna Hayward, and she serves as our chief financial officer. We come with good news today. You all challenged us to match $2 million. I was here about a year ago, and we had matched one of those. And I'm back here today knowing that we have, in fact, matched that second $1 million. My request today is how we will allocate those dollars across several of our 12 locations. It will touch 6 of those. And there are several things that need to be done at different sites. As you know, we are building an incredible new visitor center at the TC Steel site. That was the project that was matched by a private funder. And we recognize that we have real opportunity here to invite in many of the Hoosiers to see this incredible artist, and they actually need someplace to park. We hope many of them will ride their bikes, but the reality of it is that we need to be able to park people not only for our general visitors, but we also hope for this visitor center to be an income source for us. And in order for us to do that, the guests need to be able to bring in their corporation or their wedding or what have you and have convenient parking. So today we are asking for your approval for 2 things for the TC Steel site that we believe will transform that site, which has not had anything done to it since 1964. We are hoping to work with NDOT as recommended by the Budget Office, and our goal is to have somewhere around 100 parking spaces. If you have been to the TC Steel site, there's a reason that the artist thought that it was a phenomenal place. It is a very hilly place, and the place that we need to put the parking will be a challenge. So we will be working with NDOT to maximize the space, have as little impact on the site as possible, but also be able to bring in our visitors for multiple reasons. Secondly, T.C. Steele's wife entrusted 350 of his paintings to the Indiana State Museum. It's one of our largest and most significant collections. Many of you, I hope, have seen them or appreciated them. In the large studio, we currently have fluorescent lighting. And as a museum person, you can imagine that hurts my feelings. There is really a need for some significant appropriate lighting in there, as well as upgrade to the HVAC system. We need this collection to be around for another 100 years, but we also need the Hoosiers of today to have access to it. And in order to do that, we need to upgrade this system so that we know that we're doing both things. We are offering T.C. Steele's incredible work as inspiration to the next generations of Hoosiers, as well as knowing that they'll be around for years to come after that. So those are the two things that we're requesting for the T.C. Steele site. Secondly, we are, funny they should mention High Alpha. We are requesting upgraded AV equipment and theater equipment for our theater at the State Museum proper here in Indianapolis. High Alpha was having a rental there and something caught on fire. But they were very gracious and called us and worked with us and did come back the second year, but did say that in order for them to continue to be guests there, that we need to upgrade the equipment. It is the original equipment that was put in the building back in 2002, and as you can imagine, technology has increased incredibly over that time. So we are looking to increase our opportunity, again, for rental facilities and programming in that theater by bringing it up to the level it needs to be in order for us to serve those customers and guests appropriately. In addition, as many of you know, Hoosiers are very proud of their counties. And as one of the incredible icons on the building at the State Museum, there are 92 icons around the building representing each one of those counties. And many times people will use that as a place to show off the state to out-of-town people, to show off our pride in Hoosiers. Unfortunately, many of them have fallen into disrepair of no one's fault, but we do believe it's vital, both as we move into our fundraising opportunities, that we get those icons up to snuff to where they need to be, so that when you all are there showing off the Hoosiers' pride, that they are in the position that they need them to be. So we are requesting dollars to put those icons back the way they are. They're obviously very engaging, as people have chosen to take some of them home. We will look to be sure that they are not removable in the future, but are still as charming and as important as they were originally planned. The last two items that we're asking for are not quite as exciting, except vital. Limberlost, which is the home of Gene Stratton Porter. I don't know if you own an old home or have owned an old home. We happen to own several of them. And really keeping them in repair is one of our highest priorities. And the chimney there at Limberlost really needs to be repointed and brought up to speed so that it does not fall in. You can see from the picture that the mortar is starting to come apart, so we do need those dollars in order to put that right for some safety reason, but most importantly to preserve that site as Gene left it. And lastly, we have been doing, we had an incredible match from the town of New Albany to replace the cast iron and our site there, the Culbertson Mansion. Upon doing that work, as you know, as soon as you start digging into something, something always appears. And we have run into some foundation work that we need to repair in order to be sure that that site is stabilized as one of our largest mansions so that we can continue to host all kinds of things, including magic shows that bring wonder to a cool old mansion. So these are the projects that we would like your permission to move forward with those matched dollars so that we can continue to bring our incredible mission to the people of Indiana. Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have one relatively simple R&R project for you today from the Bloomington campus. This is for roof and facade repair to 3 buildings on the Bloomington campus: the Radio and TV building, the Fine Arts building, and the Simon Music building. Normally, we wouldn't bring to you roof repairs because they don't usually rise to the level of requiring state approval, but we decided in an effort for efficiency to collect a few together that were going to be done at the same time and package them together, which then rose the value of the project. And it also allows us to do the parapet repair of the limestone in each of these buildings as well. The cost of the project is $6.3 million, and it's funded by R&R funds. I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have.
This isn't for your request, but since, I'm just curious how you're funding the renovation of the dorms where you've had some mold issues with.
Sure. All housing capital construction, whether it be renovation or new funding or new construction, has to be funded by housing and dining fees themselves. It's not across the rest of the general fund of the institution. The projects that we are moving forward there, which you'll probably get to review within one of your upcoming meetings, are projects that we had scheduled for 2 years from now. We're moving the schedule up 2 years forward, but those, again, those are funded by R&R, or by housing R&R funds. Thank you.
Repeat performance. Thank you, Allison Taylor, Indiana Medicaid Director. I am here to present the renewal of our 1915 B4 waiver, which allows our CMHCs to provide MRO services to individuals with emotional disturbance, mental illness, and addiction. There is no policy change here. This is just something that every handful of years we have to go through a reauthorization and renewal process, and that's what you're seeing here.
Any questions for Allison?
Thank you.
A little easier than the last one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indiana Sports Corp, Ryan Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Ryan Vaughn. I'm the president of Indiana Sports Corp. I'm joined today by William Knox, who's the chair of Sports Indiana. For those of you who may not be familiar with our grant, the Indiana Sports Corp. And Sports Indiana receive $550,000 annually to support sports tourism throughout the state. We have handed out for you an exhibit. The first 2 pages are simply our request letter that we offer to the state every year. Following that, page 3 is the economic impact for the Indiana Sports Corp. For year 2018. We had a very fair year, hosting a number of different events with a $23.7 million impact. We hosted the Women's Big Ten Basketball Tournament. This was the 25-year anniversary of that event, and we've been fortunate enough to host that for 21 of the 25 years. And we have that event all the way through 2022. We also hosted the Big Ten Football Championship game. Thankfully, we are the only city to have ever hosted the Big Ten Football Championship game. We also have that game through December of 21, and that had an economic impact of over $18 million. And that is all part of our Big Ten partnership, which is highlighted in the request letter. I will say that in addition to those Big Ten events that we bid for, we've developed a great relationship with the Big Ten, and they've hosted other events in Indiana, including the Outdoor Track and Field Championships in Bloomington, the Rowing Championships at Eagle Creek Park, the Men's and Women's Cross Country Championships at IU, and the Men's and Women's Soccer Championships at Grand Park up in Westfield. So a very successful year on the event side. We also use a portion of this funding to attract future events, and we've had a great year on that front as well. We were awarded the Olympic diving trials, U.S. Olympic diving trials for 2020, in addition to both a senior nationals and a junior nationals championship in 2019 and 2021 respectively. I hope you all saw the announcement that we were awarded yet another men's Final Four opportunity, so we will be hosting in both 2021 as well as in 2026, which is outstanding. We have the USA Gymnastics Junior Nationals here in town shortly, and while I can't officially announce it, I can say we are in good position soon to discuss hosting both a regional round and a first and second rounds on the men's basketball side in both 24 and 25 as well. So a great announcement year for us as well as a good event year.
Yeah, and I'll just echo some of those comments. Again, William Knox, Sports Indiana, and I'm the current chair of the organization, which is a collection of sports commissions and CVBs throughout the state that have come together in partnership with ISC to market the state as a destination for sports tourism. We're currently about 22 members strong, and we're heading into our 8th year of existence. So because of the support we get from this body, we're able to provide grants to communities throughout the state to do similar work to what is done at the ISC here in the central Indiana area. This past year, we were able to support 16 different events in 13 different counties. And this is the first year that we've gotten more requests than we've had funds for. So we're in a really good position to look to grow this program in the future. The $6.7 million referenced in your graphic is just the activity that was generated by those events that were granted funds. There are many other events that happen throughout this state that contribute to the economic vitality of this state, and we've made a significant investment into an economic impact calculator tool that soon we'll be able to show you that true economic impact from the additional events that happen throughout the state. In addition to the funding we get for the grant program, we also receive some funds to do some marketing. And with that, we've been able to update our website and also look to go out nationally to promote Indiana as a destination for sports tourism. So we will continue that mission as we go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and I think it'd be great if Indiana becomes the at least amateur sports capital. And I appreciate the breadth of your programs, but I'm from Allen County, and we have Turnstone, and we have had some great success with some Paralympians. Have you, I'm just trying to look at this real quickly, I haven't seen this before. Have you put out any grants or supported this? Of course, we have the goal ball, and we've had some other events up there.
Yes, and that very unique facility, and we've worked very closely with Dan and his group up there at the CVB, and they've received support over the years.
Okay, and so are you continuing to pursue that and expand that?
The support, the funds?
Various Paralympic events?
Yes, ma'am. So their location, again, is very unique, and they've kind of started to really corral a lot of that activity in that area. So in order for us not to cannibalize each other, we're allowing that to develop fully first and then get an understanding of how we can move that throughout the state. Yes, and they did receive the grant for the adaptive sports program this past summer.
Okay, all right. Well, that would be great if we can continue. That's a great, I mean, tourism as well, but obviously. Are there any, I know with respect to esports, a lot of colleges are starting to have teams. Are there any colleges in the Big Ten or in Indiana that have an esports team? I see you're just starting to look at opportunities, but I know there are events and.
Yes, several. There are currently 350 higher ed institutions across the country that actually offer scholarships for esports. Most of the higher ed schools in Indiana have teams. It's a little bit of the Wild West in how they're allocated currently. Some of them are club programs. Some of them are actually in the athletic department, and then there's some actually in the instructional department as well. So the world is kind of growing, how they're figuring that out. We have approached the Big Ten about doing parallel tournaments. So for example, if we were to host a Big Ten basketball tournament, could we do an esports 2K tournament along the same time? And people are very interested in that. We don't have any concrete plans yet, but we're spending a lot of time in that world.
Thank you. And then finally, I know the dollars may not be significant, but I see you have partnerships and are continuing to grow with USA Gymnastics and USA Swimming, and those two come out to me because of the recent news items with respect to those organizations, specifically USA Gymnastics more. And so do you have any guidelines or concerns or policies with respect to partnering with agencies like that?
Yes,
Or
so
cloud?
all of our staff, we're a staff of 24, nonprofit organization. All of our staff have gone through, or when they're at it, go through the safe sport training. We deal directly with youth. We have a lot of youth programming, so that we would do that on our own, whether or not we were partnering with USA Gymnastics. Outside of that, programmatically, we don't necessarily, when we host an event, have any direct relationship with their medical staff, team programming, athletes in general. We're more sort of facilities, ancillary events, and that sort of thing. So yes, we have guidelines. We undergo our own training. That's about the extent of it. Thank you.
We have Marion University Primary Care Scholarships. Brian Moody.
Chairman Mishler and members of the State Budget Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the Indiana Primary Care Scholarship. My name is Dr. Brian Moody, and I serve as the Executive Director of Graduate and Online Admission at Marion University. And in this capacity, I oversee admission for medical, graduate, online, and second-degree nursing students. In our first two classes, as of May of 2018, we've graduated 278 new osteopathic medical students from the College of Osteopathic Medicine. Of those, 111, or 40%, have actually participated in the Primary Care Scholarship Program. And when you consider the fact that only half of our incoming class on average is from the state, we're very proud of those numbers in terms of what we've been able to turn back to the state to make new doctors. Specifically, for our graduates in those first two classes, primary care specialty areas of family medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, and general psychiatry rank in the top 4 out of the top 5 of our specialties for where our students are pursuing residencies. So far this year, as of mid-November, we've awarded over $1 million, $1 million to 84 different students, and we expect that number to rise to 115 by the end of this academic year. Furthermore, with recent changes in the eligibility program, we expect that overall participation to grow to 130 students next year. So we thank the committee for working with us and with our partners to make those eligibility requirements more flexible so that we can attract more students to the program. And if you look at a couple of those ways that we've made the program more flexible, specifically we have over 15 students from outside of Indiana who have pledged to work in the state afterwards as a part of this program as an actual primary care doctor. And we have 40 students who have actually taken advantage of our retroactive enrollment feature. That means they didn't sign up in the first year of the program, but they've now committed to committing extra years of service to the state to recoup some of those monies that they gave up in the first year. So overall, the decision to incentivize students to work in primary care and to serve the state of Indiana after graduation has been very, very positive. Remember, our mission at Marion is to produce doctors for the state of Indiana. And again, over half of our incoming class represents residents of the state. If you look at osteopathic physicians nationally, over 60% of them do go to work in primary care. And for Marion, our numbers have been over 70%. So we are producing primary care doctors. And last but not least, any money that is in excess of what you budget and allocate to us is actually returned back to the state as a savings that you get to recoup. So with that, I'll be happy to take your questions.
Any questions? Oh, Senator Brown.
This, and then, I guess, thank you very much. I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your report. I guess I don't understand why you can't answer how many are pursuing a residency in primary care. I understand that there may be federal issues with respect to them being a student still, but you can ask them what their preferences are and whether or not they've matched or not here. I mean, you've done a great job, but you've brought a lot more students into Indiana who are looking for residencies, and we haven't really grown our capacity, so.
Right, so that's a very good question, Senator Brown. So if there are some guidelines that we're not allowed to report out on because of how the residency programs are awarded, but you are correct that we do know where our students go. Of the 111 graduates that have a primary care agreement with us from those first two classes, 59 of them are pursuing a residency in Indiana and 52 are not. And of those that are pursuing a residency in Indiana, so of the 59, 54 of them are pursuing one in primary care. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to know how many didn't match, but whatever. Thank you.
We do have additional data on actual match rates for the entire class. If you'd like that information, I'm happy to provide it to the commission to send it through to you. We'd be very happy to do that.
Any other questions? Senator Tyan?
All right, let me just follow up because I'm not sure I heard that right. So we gave scholarships to 111, and 52 of them are not practicing in Indiana now?
That is correct. So the way the statute is written is that the years of service to the state can be recouped basically through the residency or after the completion of the residency. So that we fully expect those 52 students to honor their commitment to come back to the state once they've finished their residency training. So when you look at the continuum of medical education, it's not only the 4 years that they complete at Marion, it's an additional 3 to 7 years of residency based on their specialty. That shorter end of the continuum, 3 years, is what most primary care doctors do follow. So we would expect that by 2020, when that first class of students is finishing their residency, they'll be returning back to the state if they're out of state right now.
Is there something that we do to recoup money if they don't?
That's a great question. So through our partnership with the Commission for Higher Education, they have instituted a promissory note process that does actually convert the scholarships into a loan, which then it has the weight of an actual sort of recoupment process attached to it, yes.
All right, I remember when we started this, one of the questions that we asked was whether you front the money, do the money up front, or whether you act as like a loan forgiveness on the back end. As they complete their service, we forgive a percentage. Have we considered, or has anybody reconsidered doing that?
That's a great question, Senator Talion, and I'm not aware of that conversation, but it could certainly be happening between our partners and the members of the legislature through the statute process.
Okay, so the 52 who are not currently in,
Indiana.
Indiana doing residence, how long do they have? How many years has this been in effect?
So the program started with our inaugural class that arrived in 2013. They graduated in 2017. And those students, again, if they're pursuing a primary care residency, will take about 3 years in that residency. So again, in roughly 2020, they'll begin to return to the state to perform their years of service that they owe through the agreement.
Okay, so we're not going to really know for another couple years whether these people are actually doing what they promised.
That is correct. Given how long the medical school education process is, there are multiple steps, and so we do have to wait until we actually can report official non-compliance until they complete their residency. Okay. We do know today, though, that there are 5 students that participated in the program that have either withdrawn or were dismissed from the institution, and so those students are the only ones that I can report to you today that are not in compliance of their responsibility. And again, we notify those students to contact the state and to begin those repayment plans.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Moody, a quick question. In your professional opinion, how likely are doctors that do residency in a location to come back to the state or the location where they did their medical practice? Just, I don't know. So if you have, in your time at Marion and your professional opinion, if I leave and go to Austin, Texas to do my residency for 3 years, what's the likelihood that a person comes back to the state in which they completed their medical training?
Yeah, Director Dudish, that's a great question, and one of the biggest indicators of where students and future physicians will eventually serve is where they serve the residency. And so I know that the legislature is pursuing a separate initiative on GME funding, and so even just these numbers today prove that we don't have the necessary slots to be able to get students to do their residency here, so it's much more easy for them to stay in the state. I can look and see if our GME staff have some actual numbers and stats on that. It may be more at the MD level than at the DO level, but I'm happy to get that for you. We know that as that initial goal of recruiting students to come in as a first-year medical student, that's why we have that goal of over half the class coming from Indiana, because they're the most likely students to return to the state and stay for as a future physician. But we'll get you that information, or at least look for it, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, did you say that in order for them to pay back, they serve their time, that they can serve it while they're doing their residency in Indiana?
That actually is correct, yes. The way the statute is written is the repayment can be either through their residency or as a fully licensed physician after they complete their residency.
So that's almost like a double whammy then. You want to stay here, plus if you get your residency here, I mean, you're getting a salary. It's not great, but you're getting training still. So you're not really practicing out in the community when you're a resident. But you get to write it off because you've done your residency here. Whereas if you wanted to get a residency here and you didn't match, you owe that money and you can't pay it off. And then how is that loan treated? It's not like federal student loan, right? So is it just in line if someone, for example, declares bankruptcy? Because it doesn't have the same priority, right?
So you have packed a lot into that question, so thank you for that. In terms of, yes, there is some aspect where there's sort of a double risk based on where the student completes their residency and where they eventually serve and practice. And in terms of how the statute is written, that's simply what I understand is what the student's opportunities are. I understand that the organization that CHE uses is Heartland, which is a loan processor and servicer that collects money from students of higher education. And so I don't have the specifics in front of me in terms of what the percentages of interest are, but they're at least consistent with other loans that Heartland processes through CHE.
Wow, that's really interesting. That just doesn't seem quite right, that we really want to incentivize, because then someone can come here, get their residency, but then they leave.
And they could theoretically go somewhere else,
I
that's
think the
correct, yeah.
military doesn't pay, when you're paying back your medical school training, and if you're in the military, you don't get a one-to-one if they paid your 4 years. You owe more than the 4 years back, I think.
My understanding is that is the way that the military match works as well. That's correct, yes, yeah.
So it's kind of a double bonus if you get matched here, and if you don't, then you've got to work your way back,
Yeah.
or you have this loan unless you pay. All right.
I mean, to Director Dudich's point, that's sort of the importance of keeping students in the state as a resident as well. And between Marion and IU's graduating classes, there aren't simply enough residency slots that we can fill. So we have an overcapacity, so students have to go outside the state more or less.
Right, but we also don't want to incentivize them just to get a residency to pay off the loan and then they leave, as opposed to keeping others who might be interested.
I would tend to agree with you. For us to produce the most doctors permanently for the state, that would be an option, something to think about. Right. You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any motions to remove anything from the agenda? Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Can we take that by consent? Okay. All right. That being said, I don't think we have any announcements or anything, do we? Oh, yeah, we'll reconvene in January, probably in the first couple weeks, to have the governor's budget presentation, so, and that'll be posted. So with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.